Assalamualaikum, Tashhau, Ibdil Vanikam, and welcome to the fourth episode of Sembang Santai with me, Afiq, Zalif, and Salah. In today's podcast, the podcast where we sembang about Malaysia, on today's topic, guess what? COVID, but part 2.
So, in today's podcast, it will be more on our previous podcast, but we'll be focusing on economical challenges, people abroad, foreigners, and where we are at with the exit strategy.
We're going to start off with where we are at with the exit strategy. I believe that one of the most important thing is innovation on how we are to move on from this. Innovation will help either by helping people practice social distancing, new equipment to test COVID, or contact tracing, which is very important in fighting this COVID-19.
The reason why South Korea was so efficient at mobilizing all their contact tracing methods and also making sure there's mass testing is because a lot of the companies that produce these kinds of equipments are local. So that's why I'm assuming that they were able to negotiate a better price.
I see.
Like as far as Malaysia is concerned, recently Genting Berhad indirectly owns a subsidiary, DNA Electronics, and what they showed recently was they were developing this technology. It's a sequencing company, and they developed something called Lydia-SEQ, which supposedly obtains COVID results within hours instead of days, which allows for rapid triaging, isolating infected individuals, safely clearing non-infected patients from isolation, and potentially enabling frontline workers to return to work.
Imagine shortening the time of testing from a few days to a few hours. How great or how big the impact would be to our frontline workers and our containment of this coronavirus.
Because it means that we can also do retests. So even though you are supposedly immune because you've been infected, let's say last month, we are still able to test you again.
Correct.
Because everyone should understand that the way how the virus works is that even though you have gone through the virus and you have experienced the symptoms, there are certain cases, very rare cases, but we aren't able to conclude anything yet, where people get reinfected.
Yeah, but there were some that said that it was a negative, positive, fake
Negative.
positive,
Fake
or
positive
fake
results.
positive, or yeah. But the numbers I think the numbers was recently 200 reinfected in South Korea and Japan.
We discussed this in the last episode. So if we have this technology and we are truly able to do rapid testing, it now makes sense to do this, what the America wants to call a COVID passport.
COVID passport, yes.
Yeah, where if you are deemed not a risk to transmit the virus anymore, you get this passport so you can enter back the workforce.
Talking about COVID passport, China, what they did was giving every citizen a QR code. We know that China is a very authoritarian kind of state, and they have facial recognition of almost every person in the country. So I think initially what they did was that because they were in lockdown the earliest, right? And they had a QR code for every citizen. Citizen with green QR code were able to travel. Red was the one who has been directly exposed, and yellow around the area. So I think that was one of the reasons why they managed to contain and...
So, I think innovation in this kind is great and everything. For example, we have Slanka, a tracking app for Selangor, but is also being used in Putrajaya and nearby states. But one thing that is worth to note is that with this kind of tracing technology, we will be putting our privacy at hand or at risk as well.
There is the question whether is your life important or is your privacy more important?
Yeah, I correct. But I think it's a very thin line between what exactly governments can do when it comes to public safety and personal interests
I think
as well.
Because the issue has been raised multiple times in the past few days, that's why we aren't required, to write our ICs anymore. Like dulu, we are required to write time, date, name, IC
number.
Yeah, pretty much personal. The IC
and
is
the Malaysian
very personal.
IC is very important and also very Canggih. What's Canggih in English?
Canggih.
Very Canggih.
Malaysian
Our IC is one of the best in the world, and having our IC number is actually a very dangerous thing
I
to
see.
be exposed to the public, or anyone could look up to the paper when you go into the shop and just take down your IC number and open a bank account or something.
So I guess the takeaway from this is it's very important for us to keep public health our number one priority, but at the same time, we cannot let our privacy and our safety
Be
be something
violated.
that is violated or something we don't care about at all.
And recently, because we did smack talk, did we? Caprice last episode.
I guess.
No.
We smack talk
A lot
Adam
of
Baba.
politicians.
Adam Baba, but one of the instances where Adam Baba did cross the line to me was meeting Caprice to supposedly discuss something in line with helping Malaysians get back on their feet within the next few months. And he recently posted an update on his Instagram. He has this tracking application. So it's able to show you places with high infection rates. It's able to mark red zones within the country and places where PDLM has built a fence around it so people won't dare to enter. It seems good.
But I'm a bit critical about this because first, is it government approved? Don't we have that information by KKM already? Is it really necessary to create an app? And is he affiliated with the government? This kind of health issues, it has to be verified. Like you won't go buy a medicine from someone you don't know, someone that's not certified. These kind of important things. I don't believe that you can just go about creating an app, and expect.
So it's less credible.
Yes, it's less credible. I don't think it's necessary. One, I don't think it's good.
But
I'm not saying the initiative is bad, but maybe you would liaise with KKM or get their approval in terms of this kind of data to be shared.
But last time when he posted this, he tagged Muhyiddin. I don't think Muhyiddin ever gave out an official statement on whether he really was affiliated with Caprice. But I would assume that, Caprice is quite a lad, honestly. I've been following him for quite some time and I like him.
I mean, I'm a little on the fence about that because I'm not sure if it's his interest to help the people or to make a name out of himself.
Yeah, because he is not a company. It's different where in America, Apple, Google, Microsoft come up with a contact tracing app or website. So they are big companies. Caprice himself is a man, is a person who does not have a technology company as compared to Apple. Apple creating the new iOS app where you can contact trace. That's different. I don't see the necessity in this app.
Then we just gotta wait for future updates on this. We'll keep you guys posted.
But I've never seen the app, so I really don't know.
I really appreciate it if, Caprice team up with KKM.
Yeah, that would be
and stuff.
great. It's not saying that the initiative is bad, but maybe...
I need it to be credible.
Yes.
I need it to be something I trust in.
Correct.
Yeah.
And right now, sidetrack a bit, there's also a lot of misinformation going about. So...
KKM has a tab inside their website just targeting misinformation.
Yeah, which is a very good initiative because, there was this one video by I think Singal Singh, a joker, who put the bawang in front of the house. And, he blamed WhatsApp. They pass around fake news, WhatsApp, the pakcik, and then the mum put bawang in front of the house.
Macam Hello Vampire.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I wonder why didn't they utilize the national SMS? MKN was it? They didn't use it for this, which is weird. That's partly the innovation challenges that we face in part with our exit strategy is getting somewhere, I believe. So let's talk about economic challenges. This is an important question because we have allocated around 250 billion ringgit.
Which
You
is
would
a
believe
lot.
that everyone would get a piece of that. So that's approximately 8,000 ringgit per Malaysian. But that's not the case. So where is it going?
So 126 billion is to sustain private consumption and confidence, 3 billion in strengthening the domestic economy, and 111 billion to preserve the viability and alleviate insolvencies of domestic business entities.
Big words. Okay, but let's do a simple breakdown. What have we spent on that we know? So first, the most obvious thing is BPN lah, Bantuan Prihatin Nasional. So there's a 10 billion allocation to this. So if you're single and you're above 21 years old and you make less than 2K a month, you get 500 in April, you get 300 ringgit in May. If you're single, 21 years old, and you make about 2,000 to 4,000, you get about 250 ringgit in April, 250 in May. Let's compare this to Singapore. When they announced their stimulus package, if you are above 21, you get $600 for every...
Regardless of your income.
Yeah. For every child you have $300. And if your pay is affected, you get an additional $500. That's a lot.
A lot.
But just note why I'm telling you this, because across countries, it will always be different. Because the money you directly give to people should always correlate to how strict a lockdown is. The more strict it is, the harder it is to have income, the more money government has to inject directly into the people. This is partly why Americans are going to the streets in the early stages of the lockdown. The banks were scamming them. The lockdown in America was very strict in some places, but the help for the people weren't there.
Yeah, you can't contain. I think we said that in the past episode where if you want them to stay at home, you have to help them with their problems. Because if you have a child to feed, you won't stay at home. It's a human nature. So what Afiq said is very accurate.
And in the case for Malaysia, we'll piss because people who have their names registered with under SSM, and I just discovered this, people who have a family member who is registered under SSM can't apply. How are they gonna... it's not cheap to live. Generally, it's not cheap.
Yeah. So much for our Prime Minister saying help is for all. Because, in fact, it isn't for all.
And there are some other items that are also questionable. For example, like nice hotels for overseas students. How expensive are they?
I think the amount capped was about 150 ringgit per day initially for everyone. And maybe it's like a double-edged sword. Maybe the government in a way is helping the hotel to survive. Because, there's no more visitors and whatnot. You have to quarantine them. Why not at the same time help business survive?
Do you think that if we put the students in an OU hotel, they would run away?
I mean, yeah, I have a question about that too. You want your big hotels to survive, but what about the small ones who are even in bigger danger of losing their business?
It's not just... Maybe it was convenient for the big hotels because they're in one building. Therefore, it's easily contained. Macam our budget hotels or OYO hotels, they're very small. Some of them are at shop lots. They don't really have their own buildings. I think that's... If I was the government, that would be the justification I would give.
Yeah, and like I have a few friends who are overseas, like who came back from overseas, and they're flexing on their Instagram. Kinds of hotels they get.
I mean, if you're in a 5x5 room for 2 weeks without going out, can you really survive? I mean, however nice the hotel is.
Yeah, because it was very strict also, right? Their quarantine sessions.
No going out the room, no fresh air for some. How can you survive?
Okay lah, we'll cut you some slack. And note also that there's a separation between federal spending and state spending. So, for example, what did state spend on in this context? So, for domestic cases, for example, let's say a university student from, let's say, one of them is my friend, dia balik Sarawak or Sabah, I can't remember honestly. They are staying at a hotel, right, for 2 weeks under containment. The hotels are paid by the state government. So other things, for example, selain moratorium, there's a couple of other costs when it comes to a house or when it comes to a shop lot, such as cukai tanah. This cukai tanah sometimes gets exempted, and it's exempted by the state they are living in. For example, Terengganu ada penangguhan bayar cukai tanah. And Selangor specifically has a lot of benefits compared to any other states when it comes to things like this.
I think Selangor really stepped up. Our Menteri Besar Aminuddin, he really stepped up and filled in the big shoe and took the necessary step and was very firm about what he did or wanted to do. Because when CMCO was first initiated, right?
Yeah.
Our PKPB, he decided that restaurants couldn't eat in until recently and come up with a very clear SOP and timeline. Macam, I think our first CMCO kan was cut short. Our phase 4 was cut short.
Yeah.
But then and they say all shops could open. But our MB to fight this misinformation or confusion between state and federal, went to his Instagram and post, at this date, food truck can open. At this date, people can dine in, this and that.
I think that's the bare minimum.
Yeah. But
shout out to MB Selangor, because it's not just within economical sectors, but also within education and stuff. More on that later. But shout out MB Selangor. Good job.
You want to give a shout out. It's like, congratulating an ATM for giving you money.
No, but like in Malaysia, where everything you do will be criticized by others who are not agreeing with it, I have to credit him for still pulling through and be like,
he was
this is
one
the
of
right
the
thing
best.
to do.
He might be doing the bare minimum, but he did one of the best job among all the other states.
Yeah. So like,
Maybe the other states was not. Maybe I'm not disagreeing with you by saying that what he did was amazing. It was bare minimum, giving out information, but he was the only one to do it.
okay, kalau if we're not praising him, then I guess we're shaming all the other MVs for not doing what he's doing.
No,
One
it's
way to say
it's dependent on context. So if you want to compare him to any other MBs, wow, Jesus, he's like amazing.
Yes.
But just look at him as a politician, like, okay, so pat on the back maybe. Clap. I want to clap you. Maybe not. That's for really amazing achievements, right?
Understood. Yeah.
Talking about federal states, right? Federal state has to get back the money in one way or another. So most sectors, it has always made economical sense. So there are sectors that has never closed due to how convenient they are, and it helps with the logistics of CMO, like Grab services, fast food chains. There are more and more sectors opening as we progress along CMO, and surprisingly, we had some opposition, like shops not wanting to open.
I think the opposition was more of a logical move. It was very justified. It wasn't really an opposition. I think it was more of a critique towards the minister that decided to open the barber shop.
Yeah.
It was very early on, before we even went into PKPB. They decided to open barber shop, which was honestly very stupid.
Because
Azmi needed to get his hairline in one way or another. That literally that is his style.
We don't know if it came from him, but I mean,
I mean,
it was-
but sectors who refuse or are opposing to open know of the risk that they're taking,
Yeah,
and know that
you're
it's
right.
close to impossible.
barber shop, how you want to do social distancing?
Itulah.
Nak potong pakai apa? Nak social distancing?
Oh my god, Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
For a lot of
OMG.
people who don't know what we're talking about, barbershops aren't allowed to open. Not because they don't want to, but because their union, the MHA, the Malaysian Hairdresser Association, told them not to open.
Yeah. Which is very good. It's very good when this small, medium enterprise has unions to protect them one way or another.
But it's also problematic in one way because if barbershops are not open, you have personal barbers coming to house to house to house.
I guess that's a personal risk individuals are taking.
Is it safer though if the person travel house to house? First, maybe in house you can cut outside in the open, and we know that the virus does not transmit slower when it's in the open air, and you know who you've met if you go house to house, and it will be easier to do contact tracing if were to say that terjadi or he is infected. So yeah, maybe it's better to do house calls, but I don't know if it's legal yet.
I mean, disclaimer, we know that this topic in particular about hairdressers and barbers is quite a privileged one. We understand. But when it comes to house calls and things like that, I'm pretty sure the MHA would have to take all of those things into consideration, right?
But
There
it's
has to
your
be some sort of
it's your private initiative, but is it still under the MHA?
No. Like some barbers, they
Tapi
go on
barbers
their
as
own
in
way.
individuals.
Yeah, individuals.
So not
Individuals. So
un-
not
oh, I
companies.
see.
No. I don't call, for example, Haven to come to my house. I maybe contact one of their hairdressers personally to come and sneak into my house to cut my hair.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect that in 2020 we'll be talking about such thing. I wouldn't even imagine putting that sentence together.
Mm.
It's like asking a dealer to come to my house.
Oh my god.
Astaghfirullah. Okay, never mind.
Because there's a bunch of videos on YouTube that can teach you how to cut your hair. And on Shopee,
No,
there's
don't
10
spoil
ringgit.
your hair.
No,
Don't spoil your
why
hair.
not?
Just
You're gonna be
wait.
at home.
Don't spoil it. I mean, if
If
you're
it's too serabut and you cannot take it anymore, just go
Raya
bald.
pictures this year.
semua
Bad.
pakai songkok.
So,
Go Britney and go bald for a second. By the time MCO ends, your hair will grow back.
okay, we'll start tracking. Okay, so these are sectors that what we were talking about were sectors that are allowed to open but didn't open. And I think the major takeaway from this is there is a problem. The problem is that, for example, a tenant asking you for rent, right? For example, like, please give me my money. You are now allowed to open, but why are you not open yet?
Right. Maybe, how do I put this? Maybe the tenant, trying to be empathetic or trying to put myself in their shoes, maybe the tenant has bills to pay, families to feed. And maybe it's a franchise that does not want to open and they are staying on their cash reserve. You know, and I think these cases have to be assessed and settled individually, which will take a lot of manpower. But I think it's individual cases, and it's very hard for us to generalize this as a whole. You know?
Which is something they should look into lah. So there are other sectors that we want to talk about. Sectors that are necessary economically but are very high risk. What we're talking about is the tourism industry.
Okay, so we think more can be done for the tourism industry. There should be a targeted stimulus package to ensure that the industry can rebound once things are normalized. Because as of all the articles that we can see, the latest that we can expect our tourism industry to stabilize is next year, June. That's the earliest that we can, start to get money and revenue from our tourism industry.
But it's also, speculation wise, I think whatever prediction that is being done, example, next year, stabilize next year. What if by next year we don't have a vaccine? You know? And we can't predict people's action. Does people, tourists want to come? I believe that, flights will go more expensive after this. That's almost sure. And a lot of tourism is being done because budget airlines where the cost is decreasing. Then the cost will increase. Their disposable income, people's income would decrease. So they would conserve their cash and spend, I think, on more necessity than on tourism. I think it'll be very hard for tourism to recover.
One of the hardest hit for about this topic is a youth belia-belia muda who studied abroad and stayed there and established a tourism business. Right? When Malaysians come there, they offer fair price. Like, do you want me to show you around the country? That's how they make their income. A lot of students in New Zealand are doing that.
Is that a side income or main
That is their
income?
main income.
Wow, okay.
They
I
make
didn't
that
know
into a full-time job, and they are really hit hard.
I see. But then, instead of just talking about the revenue government can get from tourism, we also have to keep in mind the 3.5 million Malaysians who are working under the tourism sector.
And I think this is only the directly working, example, hotels. But we haven't even taken into account macam dekat pantai, we have those boats, jet skis, and then kedai makan.
I see. Betul?
Macam mana, they'll be badly affected. And it's very hard to help them.
Okay, so what are the sorts of help that we have so far? There's a wage subsidy program where employees who earn more than 4K per month, they will receive a subsidy that can retain their job for a period of 6 months. Correct? So do you guys think it should be longer? Like, should it extend above 6 months? Because of course our tourism is not going to stabilize within 6 months, right? After 6 months later, they won't get the subsidy. They won't get to put food on their table. Do you think we
And
should be
people will
extending
have to
it?
be laid off. I think it's almost necessary to extend it because it's almost sure, or we are very sure that it's gonna take longer than 6 months for a vaccine to come.
More than a year.
More than a
perhaps,
year.
Right?
So the government pays the employer to make sure they maintain their job.
Yeah.
Or the government directly pays the salary.
No, because most of these things aren't most people working under tourism, they're not directly under government, right? They have their own franchises and stuff. So government gives subsidy to employers to give to their employees.
This is something that I want to place about the government. This deserves a clap. Because not a lot of countries follow this. For example, Malaysia, we are very similar to the UK in this sense because our governments are paying employers to make sure their employees still maintain their job, as opposed to the US, which doesn't do so, but I think instead subsidizes their salary. It turns out that in the end, employers fire them anyway. There's no incentive to maintain. And this means that the US has a longer problem to deal with, unemployment. To the very least, we are able to maintain our
I think in the
unemployment
US,
number at a certain level.
I think in the US it was about how many? Millions, tens of millions, is it? Enrolled for unemployment benefits.
Like
In-
US,
in the
the rule,
tens.
mortgage, they don't have
I
any
think the
subsidy or
number
anything.
was 33 million to date. I'm not sure if it's correct.
Okay, so let's look at some statistics that we have. 40% of tourism workers were asked to take unpaid leave, and then 40% had to accept pay cuts. So these percentages are suffering enough at hand already. They're literally surviving paycheck to paycheck. And then Mata supports the government's decision to urge leasing company to offer a 6 month moratorium to help travel agencies who own their own tourism vehicles. And then they also asked for private agencies to stop contributing to EPF, SOCSO, income tax for 6 months. And then the most recent one, from January to March, expected losses by major tourism industry players mount up to 9 billion ringgit. So what do we think about that?
Big monies, a lot. It's very
It's big.
big.
What
Shocking.
else
No, but
what else can say? Like the only thing I can compare 9 billion to is the 2.6 billion Najib allegedly took.
I think it's jaw-dropping numbers, seeing that in the future, we are in uncharted waters, like how PH won and beat BN, and it didn't go too well for Malaysia.
That's democracy.
So yeah, we are in uncharted waters, and
But these workers are very much unprotected. Although we're doing as much as we can, I don't think it's enough because they're already losing a portion of their paycheck, and then
But
some
how
of their
much can
retirement funds also.
how much can the government help? How much can the government inject in the economy before we turn into a communist state?
I mean-
in a matter of speaking.
Isn't that too far though? That when we inject that much money, we'll turn into a communist state.
It's not, yeah. How much can the government afford to give? They don't have, remember the government also doesn't have income coming in. How much can they give?
But I guess that's why we need, workers' unions are important, labor unions are very much important. Like the MHA one, at least you have a union protecting you. But for tourism industry, we have yet to see any press release or press statements by workers or hotels claiming that they're helping their employees survive during MCO and as such.
This you add with the fact that a lot of hotels are closing down. Pullman is closing down.
They're
Ibis
selling or
hotels
closing?
closing down and then
There's
selling, closing down by
hotels
selling,
in
I guess.
KL that's being sold, kan?
A lot of them under this group called Eco Group
Maybe
Hotels.
it's the last straw. You know?
It is. They aren't making money. So these are business sectors that make a lot of economical sense to open, but government just can't open for now. But there are sectors that don't have any economical benefits, but government are opening them up anyway. As of writing this on 15 May, Malaysia Kini reported Ismail Sabri Yaakob will not rule out any possibility that the loosening of restrictions on the masjid it could be retracted if there are any violations of the SOP. Just background to this issue. Masjids were open during Raya, right? 30 people were allowed.
Yeah.
With social distancing. I think personally, I think it's okay for masjid to open because you take that Masjid Negeri Shah Alam kan, it's huge. And I think SOPs are able to be implemented. I think with social distancing, the masjid can take easily 500 people. I mean kalau solat hari biasa pun 2 saf je. Kan? If you put SOP, it's huge. And it's open air again. And you can wear masks which will reduce the RO. It is possible to open back. Whether it's necessary or not, that's debatable. But I think it's about time to open back the masjid.
So far, do we have cluster masjid mana-mana?
Oh, just the Sri Petaling one lah.
Okay.
Which is before
social distancing was a thing and stuff.
But that's the thing. Like when you open something, it's very hard to close it back.
Yeah.
True.
And once people diorang dah selesa pergi masjid, jumpa their neighbours, jumpa their jemaah. Like I'm not trying to ask if like please close. No, the way that the jemaah works, there's a lot of interactions. Habis solat, you salam each other.
It's a new normal. You don't have to salam each other. I mean, if you want to open the masjid, you can open.
No,
the
but
masjid.
it's a spiritual thing. What? It's a spiritual thing to salam.
Which is also.
So we are digressing into faith.
It's necessary also. Some may say that praying is necessary at the mosque.
No, but that's the function of.
Come on lah.
That's the function of ruksa. What? Ruksa.
Ruksa apa?
Ya Allah. It's the leniency that Islam gives to its followers.
Alah, macam Wan Faisha pula using big words.
Tabayun. Maybe I can.
I think the matter of opening the mosque is a matter of individuals.
I say close it.
No, I mean I
think
agree with Ismail Sabri lah.
It should open. How long you want to keep it closed?
Okay, but you want to take a more
you want to
neutral
say
position.
mosque doesn't make money, right? Let's talk about the financials of mosque. How many people is employed in the mosque? Security guards, ustad, cleaners, zakat money.
I'm sorry. I paid my zakat online. I didn't have to go to mosque, sorry.
No, not just zakat, donations. Like our masjid makes millions on a monthly basis, which in return they channel it back into the economy. So you see, I think it's not just spiritual.
Okay, I'll take the Ismail Sabri approach. As long as they don't violate SOP,
Yes.
we open. If not,
Tak payah buka.
balik rumah lah solat Jumaat.
Macam surau-surau kecil kan, they have donations and they will buy food for the orang asnaf around the area and indirectly help. So it's not just spiritual, Afiq.
No, I understand because I too am I go to the
man of
masjid.
religion.
Yeah, a man of religion. No, why are you guys laughing? These are things that I don't tell to you guys. You know sebab apa riak? Zalif, ha?
Sambung, Afiq, sambung.
Aduh.
Okay, maybe let's get serious.
Okay.
Close the masjid. Can people survive the CMO?
So Bank Negara Malaysia reported 75% of people have less than 1,000 ringgit savings. Most people here spend on average 1K a month. So like by 7th of April, they will have close to nothing already. And then one thing that the government did by 7th of April is they gave 1K, like the BPN, to these people, right?
Diorang bagi BPN, but they will also, I read on Twitter, orang tak dapat. it was delayed. Ada technical errors. Can you believe MOF, Ministry of Finance, has technical error? Apa
I can't
ministry?
believe it because like
It's not Ministry of Technology, obviously.
Lah, but macam I think our civil servants is good. I remember Syed Sadiq said that we have a good quality people working in the ministry. Macam kan dia punya tour di Langkawi, they wanted to outsource it or one of the events, but they used the in-house people and they managed to cut costs by almost 50%. The reason I'm saying this is that it shows that we have good and amazing, hardworking, efficient people working for the government agencies. Kita ada BNM is also under MOF. It's unspoken that the top of the cream, pandai yang paling pandai works at BNM. Kita tak boleh make this. It's a matter of putting food on people's table.
Okay, let me ask you this. Siapa Menteri Kewangan?
Tengku apa? Zafrul.
Okay, dia dulu kerja apa?
Bank.
Bank apa?
CIMB.
What's the online platform called?
CIMB Clicks.
How was that?
The worst.
Exactly. Proves my point. Yeah, it's okay, I'm just joking, by the way, and I hope this thing gets resolved very much soon. But as you can see the trend that Salah was explaining, by this time on the 7th of April, the Gov gave 1,000. And after a month, supposedly that 1,000 has depleted. So by the 12th of May, 1 month after 7th of April, they allowed people to work now. I think this is the logic why they went halfway with the fourth phase of CMO. Just couldn't afford anymore.
We explained in the first episode that they will be suffering 100 billion ringgit loss. So
they need to work so they get income until June. If not, government needs to put in another fiscal injection into the economy, which most probably they don't have any money now. And just another fact, only 6% of Malaysians have enough money to survive 6 months. We do have a moratorium, but it only applies to people who deals with the bank. This does not include people who deal directly with the tenant.
We do not have policies or SOP regarding renting of houses apa semua.
I think this have, but the problem is always regulation.
Tak, macam example you own a house, you rent it out to me. There's no SOP for us. We have to deal with it between us kan. You know what if your tenant is kedekut or again has bills to pay, you know?
So the problem is that when your survivability and your ability to put food on the table for your family is now dependent and based on a person's goodwill.
Yeah, which should not happen.
Which should never happen.
How are people spending their money that they get?
Well, like first thing is food,
which is a necessity.
But some people take advantage of that fact. They increase prices of essential goods, for example, chicken. Baru-baru ni it has become an issue. Timbalan Menteri Perdagangan Dalam Negeri dan Hal Ehwal Pengguna. Wow, what a mouthful. Dato' Rosul Wahid said, pilih kedai atau pasar yang tawarkan harga murah.
This is, I think, a very, very stupid statement. You know?
Fix it lah.
But we do have it, what? We have a ceiling price point.
We do.
For chicken.
Yeah, but it came late. You know? Masa Raya hari tu.
Oh, I see.
A few days before Raya, chicken went to about 9 to 10 ringgit per kilo kan? Which is, you know, you're already holding the position. Kau nak sangat kuasa, dah dapat kuasa, tak nak guna kuasa to help the people. I mean, it's sad, you know, to see that you're not doing your work and you're coming out with this kind of stupid statement.
Exactly. Like, you know who else said this statement? My nenek. Yeah, I went to beli ayam. It was about 9 ringgit. Complain to her. Pergilah pasar atau kedai yang tawar harga murah.
Your nenek is not getting 50,000 per month from the government, right?
Exactly. And that's the problem. And these are all issues that should have been dealt with at the first phase of CMO, not to be discussed now during the fifth phase. Like, to put it all in perspective, our inequality, our income inequality, our wealth inequality are not that good. And inequality is an important consideration in making policies to help people. Our Gini coefficient, which is a indicator of how inequality is, was about 42.8%, which is very high. So this is something that we have to deal with.
uh, Other sectors, because we're also in the talking about sectors, some sector never closed. They brought work to home. So there's been surge in webcams, microphone, and laptop sales. People are doing indoors. Is it sustainable? Is working from home productive? Is working from home productive?
Well, I think it's fine. It's okay. You can still maintain and sustain productivity. But the thing that we have to address is simply the fact that none of us were equipped because it came to us
Initially,
as
yes,
a
correct.
hailstorm, right? And it's not just at workplace, it's also within sectors of education as well. Everyone is suffering because we have to shift our daily life in the office or our daily life sitting in front of the whiteboard to sitting in front of your laptop
I
and
mean,
working there.
even before this virus outbreak, there were talks about working from home, and
Yeah.
how it's more productive. There were arguments, but it was a very small community talking about working from home.
And mind you, the small community is, of course, the privileged
Privileged
community.
yes, those who works young,
Young have access to device, fast
rumah
internet
besar,
connection.
they have their own room for their office and
Yes,
whatnot.
uh-huh.
They would easily adapt to a working environment at home as compared to, let's make contoh you kerja secretary or something at the GLC, and you're earning 2,000, 3,000. You're most likely living in a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom apartment kan. Kalau kau ada 3 anak, 2 anak, how are you to work?
Yeah.
Where is your space to work? You have your kids, you have to take care of your kids. You can't afford a maid.
And there are also more direct problems, and this shows the necessity of working on site. For example, you need to site visit, you need to liaise with clients, particularly clients who don't like online conferences. I have a couple of friends who are in the marketing business, and this is something they told me that they have to deal with, and it's very annoying. Also, a lot of vendors want upfront payment because everyone is taking care of their cash flow. So they want payment now. They want it in cash. Then you see the manufacturing sectors, some of which the sectors they work in massive batches. They need to be on site. How are you gonna produce steel, manufacture plastic?
At 50% of the workforce or something like that kan.
Yeah.
You want to do that from home? No, I cannot.
Of course, cannot. Those things you have to depend on existing technology. Like, you cannot depend on manpower already.
Yes.
Exactly. You can't use a Excel spreadsheet to produce plastic.
So what are some benefits that have come up with our MCO or CMCO? People are becoming bakers, cooks, opening their own business, but overall it's more of a phase rather than a long-term job. Yeah. So this cooking, my mom also cook more since under lockdown, and she even considered selling some cakes or cinnamon rolls for an extra cash and whatnot. And but when it comes, but is it sustainable? This is what they call apa ni, a housewife economy or domestic economy. I read a long paper about that saying that it cannot be controlled. It's like a house delivery kind of thing. It's not taxed and whatnot, which is very. It helps.
It helps
the
people,
B40 family
yeah.
to survive.
So, like, given that we can agree this part, like the domestic economy that Zarif was talking about, isn't sustainable, there has to be an exit strategy, a thorough exit strategy that include daycare centers and schools. Because, like, if parents go to work, who's going to take care of their child and stuff like that, right? So one thing that must be noted is that SOP for daycare centers to operate all falls under Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, Keluarga dan Masyarakat. And of course, they can alliance with KKM, right? They have to collaborate with KKM to have a further understanding of the SOP and things like that. But what exactly happened? Do we have that SOP, or did it come a little later? Are our daycare centers opened, or is it not? So let's just have a background first on what's happening with our daycare centers, because DG Hisham himself said that if we open up daycare centers, it is just no different than holding a mass gathering, which of course makes sense because how are you supposed to control children? Like, how do you maintain discipline, social distancing, and things like
I
that?
think
These
in
are children we're
Singapore,
talking
what they
about.
did was the children wore face shield. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all daycare children have to wear face shield.
I guess, yeah,
I mean, they
all of
can't
these
touch their face.
initiatives will have to be under a given SOP.
SOPs,
But do we have this exact SOP? The thing is, even we're not sure because it was never released by KPW or KKM themselves. But some of the listings and real life examples that we can give is in Petaling Jaya, a daycare center opened up because they had an SOP. But all of the employees there, all of the employees as well as the children who are sent there has to be tested negative for COVID, of course. And then when the center resumes operation, it has to be sanitized and disinfected twice a day. The operator has to, keep a 1 meter social distancing on the floor. And childcare staff are also directed to wear masks and educate their young people on the importance of social distancing and frequent hand washing. But understand that this will take time for workers themselves to adopt to that given SOP. But the thing that we want to highlight here is some daycare centers refuse to open simply because they don't have the accessibility or the source to apply or to comply with the SOP given. Like Little Footprints in KL, they don't want to open because they say SOP is burdening and financially taxing to them. And then another problem with daycare centers that we have to note here is recently on the news, there's been remarks that it's discriminatory because we are segregating frontliners' children's and non-frontliner children's within daycare centers themselves. I personally think that this is fine. I personally think that using the word discrimination is too harsh. I agree with Mercy Malaysia punya founder, Dr. Jamila, when she said that discrimination is too much of a word to use to describe this. Because it is in fact true that these children of frontliners are at high risk. And, putting them in a room with other children will just impose even a bigger
Higher
risk
risk.
to
Right.
everyone involved. But what do you guys think? Should the word discrimination be used?
I would think that given that DG Hisham commented on this in a way to show disapproval towards Kementerian Wanita's SOP, it shows that KKM and Kementerian Wanita weren't alliancing properly when it came to constructing this SOP. So even if it's not discriminatory and it is required, I want to see scientific facts and data on how likely it is for a frontliner to be infected.
I think
It should always be
there
backed
was
by that.
325 healthcare was infected, but DG Hisham confirmed that none of it came from working with patient. So I think this is apa nama dia, it shows that our healthcare is protected. Maybe there's an argument that due to this they shouldn't be discriminated or such a word. But there will always be risk. There will always be risk, regardless of the data that we have. There is a probability that they will get infected.
And mind you, we understand like frontliners, they have
Given
a bunch
a
of
lot.
SOP,
Yeah.
because even before they enter their house, they have to shower, I don't know how many times. They have to take off their clothes before touching any of their family members and things like that. For sure, we realize all of this is happening, but the risk that it can still affect their family members is just too big of a risk.
You also got to realize what this policy implies. Like, until we get a vaccine, this policy will be in place. So the children of frontliners are going to get segregated for maybe around 1 to 2 years away from other children. What would that look like?
I'm not exactly sure because even right now, the three of us here and many of you at home listening, we celebrate our frontliners, correct?
Agreed.
We appreciate all of the work that they're doing. I don't see a world that we discriminate their children simply because they are the children of frontliners.
I think there has to be a fine line between precaution and to take the necessary step and to ensure that they're not discriminated as a matter of speaking.
if you discriminate, right, children or frontliners for having to be segregated, I'm gonna come after you personally on Twitter. So watch out for @AfikZairul and @SarahSalihan, okay?
The bottom line is that whatever policy you come up with and whatever SOPs you construct, always alliance with KKM. And if you did alliance, whatever policies that you deem may be controversial, always back it up with an explanation.
Yes, scientific explanation.
You need to do this awal-awal. If not, people will attack you.
So I think sampai sini je lah hari ni
We want to go Raya.
Alah.
This is the first day of Raya. We're recording this.
Alright,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. That is all from Afik, Zarif, and Sarah. Follow us on Instagram @Simbang Santai Podcast, and also subscribe to us on YouTube.
We also have to give credit to...
We have a researcher now, One Danish Irfan. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so much
for
for
a bunch
helping.
of content that you have helped.
Okay
contribute.
guys, selamat Hari Raya. Maaf Zahir dan Batin.
Selamat Raya.
Terima kasih.
Close down the
Bye.
masjids. Bye-bye.